Okay. Okay, so the purpose of doing these few Tuesdays is to mainly go through this particular book, which I have been talking about for many years, recommending to members. And, many years ago when we used to do one-on-one nutrition counseling with everybody, I would often refer back, having read lots of different books on nutrition, but few things, like few resources, few tools were so adaptable, so practical, and at the same time can be modified to suit our, not only our Indian foods, but also our Indian culture and our Indian way of eating. But that's not the reason why I'm discussing this book, because the purpose of these few sessions is not to go into the how of the nutrition and what to eat and why to eat it, etc. But I actually just want whoever's interested to pick up on the sciencey bits that the book explains and to understand the underlying philosophy of what the food that we eat does to our bodies. And then once we've got this understanding, which is not sciencey, it's rather supported with science. So once you've got an understanding of this, with some backing from science, then you go to the next step, wherein then you begin to apply it to yourself. And you say, okay, where am I over here? Where do I feel these symptoms? Which parts resonate with me more than others? So we'll just go through the book, kind of skim through it. The first thing let's look through is the table of contents. Now, when I share this, I will only share this as an audio recording and not as a video, because this is all, it's a Kindle book, it's copywritten. And so whatever you pick up, do it from the audio recording, and hopefully whoever's not here live can look through the book electronically themselves and follow some of it. Okay, so the book is very interestingly broken up into the main section, which it calls the good food standards, which is part 2 that you see over here. Everyone can see the screen, right? I'm assuming you can see the screen.
Yeah.
So, okay. So part 2, which is the good food standards. This is the fundamentals of understanding nutrition. Okay. So these are from chapter 1 to chapter 7 is where we will spend the most amount of time. And then we will go through, or rather skim through quickly, some of the foodie parts, the sugar, seeds, etc. This will end up being much more of a question answer, because we already have a lot of myths, misunderstandings, and certain facts that we believe to be true about types of foods, etc. So we'll kind of skim through that, and you can build on it on your own. Okay. Okay. Let me go through. Okay. This sentence: not only does the food we eat have a substantial impact on our health, a fact vastly underrated in today's conventional medical community, it is a very cornerstone of good health. So the food we eat is the cornerstone of good health. It's not just something we do to feed ourselves, nourish ourselves, give us energy, give us protein, etc. It is the foundation of good health, and everything kind of stems. Fact. Okay. This bit, which is essence of the book. We eat real food, fresh, natural, like meat, vegetables, fruit. We choose foods that are nutrient dense with a lot of naturally occurring vitamins and minerals, not fortified, over foods that have more calories but less nutrition. And food quality is important. We are careful about where our foods come from, our meat, seafood, eggs, etc. And we try to buy local produce as often as possible. The idea is not to follow a diet. So nobody else should have the right to tell you how much to eat, when to eat, and how to eat it. You eat as much as you need to maintain strength, energy, and a healthy body weight for yourself. Okay. So a well-balanced nutrition plan usually has plants and animals. We get our carbs from vegetables, fruits, healthy fats, avocado, coconut in our culture, a lot of groundnut in our culture, olive oil provides us with ghee, excellent source of energy. Eating like this allows us to maintain a healthy metabolism, which keeps our immune system in balance. Very important points. We'll go into this in more detail. It's good for body composition, which means the shape of our body, the way we look, our energy levels, the quality of our sleep, moods, and attention spans. These are three things that most of us take for granted, and rarely do we pause to link it to the food that we have eaten. So again, sleep, the mood, and the attention span. Okay. It helps eliminate sugar cravings, reestablishes a healthy relationship with food. It also works to minimize our risk for most lifestyle-related diseases and conditions, okay? We all know these: diabetes, cardiovascular, stroke, autoimmune. So again, we look at these conditions as conditions which need to be treated. But what we need to learn how to do is work the steps backwards to link them to the foods that we're eating, which are impacting our immune system, our metabolism, our hormonal production. And when those elements, and our gut, and when those four elements go out of balance, then we have poor energy levels, poor sleep, bad moods, poor attention span. That leads to cravings, that leads to an imbalance in the way that we feel about food, or the way that we think food makes us feel. And therein starts our journey towards all these lifestyle-related diseases. So it's this whole chain of events, which actually, if you think about it, you can relate it to yourself, you can relate it to people around you. And that's why the food is the cornerstone of our health. Okay. Someone cares about you and your health so much that they're willing to facilitate your transformation and support you along the way. So this is why we're doing this. And understand that if you're reading this book and following the methods, you will feel, or should feel, empowered yourself, because the book is supposed to help you understand yourself better. It's not meant to give you knowledge and to give you facts about science and foods, etc. Okay, that you can get anywhere from many different books. The point is to go through the material in a way that it helps you understand yourself. And that's why it starts with food. Okay, I'm going to move on. Very important thought, very interesting thought, which is that the food you eat either makes you more healthy or less healthy. That is it. Those are the two options, okay? The food makes you more healthy or less healthy. There's no neutral food. There's no neutral food. There's no Switzerland of food. Every single thing that you put in your mouth is either making you more healthy or less healthy. It's a thought worth thinking about, especially when we are emotionally eating, especially when you are fooling ourselves, or we are eating under social compulsions, or out of respect or cultural backdrops, behind, like weddings and, oh, the person will feel bad and all of those kind of things. So remember, food, cornerstone to health. Everything you eat makes you more healthy or less healthy. Okay. This is a little on the Whole30 program. I don't, again, like I mentioned, that I'm not going to go into the Whole30 program by itself, because facts on how to follow it are easily available online. You can look through it. But what's important here is the understanding. And, many of us have done many kinds of self-disciplining activities, okay? Habit forming activities. We've read self-help books. We have followed gurus and yogis, and we have practiced breathing exercises or yoga in lots of different ways. What we learn from this is that it takes time to create transformation, and it takes repetition, and it takes consistency. So according to these writers, 30 days of creating changes in your food habits makes a completely change neural pathway. Your brain wiring rechanges, and you actually establish a good relationship with food, which lasts you a long time. Okay. And again, the highlighted bit over here, as you can see, I was falling asleep easier, staying asleep longer, waking up without an alarm clock. How many of us feel like this? And the quality of our sleep, these are the little parameters that, following certain practices, whether it's yogic practices, food practices, when they agree with our body holistically, the way that we feel is in our rest periods, in our sleep, in the quality of our energy. Okay. So for 30 days, I ate nothing but food that made me healthier as much as I wanted, no counting calories, measuring portions. And those 30 days changed my life in a very real, very positive way. There are many such case studies throughout the book, little snippets of examples that people are giving. And usually, remember that in any of these nutrition books, or if for that matter, if you go to a nutritionist or you go to a doctor, who you will hear of the most transformational stories, people who've overcome cancers and rheumatoid arthritis and lots of debilitating problems but understand, I always say that the deeper the hole you're in, the more the intention and the willingness to crawl out of it. Many of us have dug a little pit for ourselves, but it's not deep enough till the problem becomes medical. So the idea of trying to understand ourselves is to not look at health only when we are sick. It is not just the absence of sickness, which is health, but it is actually to thrive on a daily basis, which is a good parameter for health. Okay. So again, they've given examples of asthma that is gone, blood pressure back to normal, cholesterol that has come back, heartburn that is gone, tendinitis, so any joint related issues. Again, reiterating the fact that the way of thinking about food impacts not just our relationship with food, but overall our relationship with life. And no matter what age you're at, everything that kind of holds you back, that puts a brake in the way that you want to live your life, can be enhanced through the food habits that you follow. Okay. Now, a quick, there's a little note on the paleo diet and how some of the suggestions or the method of eating that has been recommended in this book are quite similar to the paleo, which is kind of like the caveman diet. For those who are not so familiar with it, it's basically generally considered to be a way of eating, which is the way that our ancestors ate. So, trying to eat, these are the myths that, okay, it's more carnivorous, or it is less fiber, less fruits, vegetables, etc. So they're making a few points which I think are relevant to just remind ourselves that the way that we are talking about food is not breaking it up into meat or vegetarian food. There is a lot of balance of plant matter as well as moderate amounts of good quality meat. Okay. The fat that we're going to eat is not the type which is the processed, trans, vegetable oil, etc., but the fats that will actually give us fuel. Okay, as well as help us absorb vitamins and minerals. And lastly, the diet is not carb phobic either. So it's not like, oh my God, carbs are bad for us and etc. It's more about eating carbs or foods which are nutrient dense, whether or not they are calorie dense. Again, I'm saying nutrient dense foods which enhance our sense of well-being rather than calorie dense foods. Having said that, we're not, there's no need to think of the diet as, oh, it's similar to this or similar to that, because we don't want to just, again, look at food as in it's giving us names, diagnosis, like the medical community does. Okay, this is what this is called. Now, how do I treat that? So we're not talking about food like, okay, this is a paleo diet or this is a herbivorous or a vegan diet. No, that is the stage that you come to when you apply the food principles to yourself. Okay. Okay. Now, there are some things for which we are simply hardwired. Listen to this, like being active during the day, sleeping at night, sweet tastes, experiencing thirst when we are dehydrated. So This, when I say this like this, it sounds so natural. Yeah, of course. Of course, I'm energetic during the day. And yet, how many of us are up till much later at night than our bodies would like us to be? Liking sweet tastes, most natural thing for us. Feeling thirsty. These are primal urges. Primal urges. They go back thousands of years. They are wired into our genes, and these are designed to keep us safe, to keep us fed, hydrated, and healthy. Okay, very basic, very simple, but very, very fundamental. Today, these same biological signals don't always work in the same way. And understand this last line, our ability to override these signals are the reasons that get us into trouble. We are making the choices to override these signals. We are choosing to stay up late. We are choosing to overcomplicate the foods we eat, the timing. We are choosing to sign out of what intuitively we feel about food, and also trying to follow too much of external advice, too much of regimented, strict criteria of what is good nutrition and what is bad. Okay, so our ability to override these primal urges is often the reason why we are getting into trouble. This leads us, and I'm sure many of you will agree with this, paralysis by analysis. It's a state in which you actually don't take any action because you don't know what to do. It's a perennially confused state. It's a state where people are either so micro-analyzing themselves that they lose the larger picture. Because they lose the larger picture, there's complete paralysis. And then whatever information that's coming to them, especially the sciencey one, is just leaving them more and more and more confused. So again, the purpose of this discussion is not just to focus on the science of things. It's actually to understand the science, and then comes the main step, which is when you apply that to yourself. If you're the kind of person who needs to know not just the how, but also the why, then we're going to go through these chapters, which I said that, we're going to concentrate on these chapters, which are on the good food standards. And these good food standards will lay the foundation of how we feel about the food that we're eating. Once this foundation is laid and you have an understanding of this, then a lot of the questions about, okay, is this food good for me? Is this bad for me? Will become immaterial, because you will know the answers to that and you won't need to ask somebody that. Okay. So again, a little example of how food has helped this person with allergies. Okay, so anyone who suffers from severe allergies, let's say in this weather, by dust, pollen, construction work, etc., we look at it as a medical issue. What I'm saying is we need to work backwards. Start with the food. Start with the food, and that will have an impact on how your body is responding to the threat to our immune system, which is the meaning of an allergic reaction. Okay, 4 good food standards that they recommend, and they all make great sense, and they are explained really, really well. So the food that we should eat needs to have, firstly and primarily, a very strong and healthy psychological response in the body. Second, it should promote a healthy hormonal response in the body. Third, it should support a healthy gut. And fourth, support immune function and minimize inflammation. Inflammation is up when the immune system is struggling. And that's why these 2 points go together. So these, in a nutshell, are the 4 good food standards. In the book, 1 chapter is dedicated to each of these 4 standards, in which they go into a lot of interesting detail about how to understand your psychological response, how to understand the hormonal effect of a certain food on you, how to understand what a healthy gut looks like. Because only when you understand what a healthy gut looks like, will you understand what a leaky gut feels like. And then you'll be able to relate to, okay, that reflux that I get regularly, now I understand that that's a result of a leaky gut. Okay. And lastly, you will get a good understanding of what a strong immune system is capable of and how low inflammation feels. And therefore, you can understand little signs of when you're feeling bloated, when you're feeling you have water retention. What is the signal that the body is giving you? Okay, but before we get into that, what is food? People sometimes oversimplify food and say things like, I eat whole grains for fiber, I drink milk for calcium, and of course, the big protein word, okay, I get my protein from paneer or from tofu or from chicken and etc., eggs, okay? The reality is that all whole, unprocessed food is a rich, complex blend of nutrients. So we all have heard this: micronutrients, macronutrients. Micro is essential compounds which are needed by our body, but only in very small amounts, okay? A micronutrient is not generally consumed because it gives us energy. It's consumed because it keeps our body in balance. How? It protects us against free radicals. It makes our immune system stronger. It helps in the repair, the growth functions of the body through the hormonal system. What are the basic micronutrients that we have an understanding of is vitamins and minerals, and we all often take a multivitamin, C, calcium, all of these. These are, so understand that all the foods that we eat, and we know this, all the foods that we eat have some content of micronutrients that have a function in the body. Macronutrient, as opposed to that, is chemical compounds which are consumed in large amounts. They are necessary for our normal growth, for our metabolism, and for the other bodily functions, our digestive system, our excretory system. They are all dependent on the macronutrients that we consume. And therefore, they are very important because they are the source that fuels us. They are the source of energy. And sometimes they're also the source of growth, especially in growing kids or children. And we understand the macronutrients to be of the three broad categories, which is the carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. All of these, okay? So the macro view is carbohydrates, we understand sugars, starches, fiber. So those are our three, we've all learned this in school. Repeating, it's the sugars, starches, and fiber. We typically associate fibers with vegetables, sugars with fruits, and starches with our grains, okay? But all of it actually breaks down into simple sugars in our body. Even the complex carbs, they all break down into simple sugars. Understand that even if you don't eat carbs, your body is able to manufacture them from certain amino acids, and to a small extent, even from fat. So by not eating carbs, it's not like, oh my God, where will I get, how will I fuel myself? Where will I get the energy for my brain to function? No, the body is capable of converting every macronutrient, including proteins, including fats, into the basic form of glucose, which it needs to fuel the cells. So it is capable of that. So that is why that some people may say that there's no dietary requirement as such for carbohydrates. Okay. Proteins, we know, building blocks of biological structures. Most enzymes and most hormones in our body are actually proteins. They're linked up as chains. So they're actually proteins by itself, which is an interesting fact to remember, because we talk about hormonal changes and we talk about, okay, my vitamin is off or my vitamin D is off, etc. So relate that to the fact that what are we talking about? We're talking about the complex proteins that we have in the body. Fatty acids belong to one of the three types of families: saturated, monounsaturated, polyunsaturated. So in order to absorb certain micronutrients, we need fat in our body because many of them are only fat soluble. So you may be taking a great plethora of multivitamins, but if you're on a low fat diet and if you don't put ghee on your rice and you don't, you think that thinking about fat will make you fat, then all of those vitamins and minerals are basically being flushed out of your system, okay? Because the body doesn't have the capacity, doesn't have the medium to absorb it, and that medium is fat. Very importantly, dietary fats are also the building blocks of brain tissue, of nerve fibers, reproductive stress hormones. They are immune messengers. So all of these things, these little things that tweak our sense of well-being, normally it's not hunger pangs that make us feel unwell. It's mood swings. It's feeling stressed, or feeling like I have an imbalance, or feeling burnt out, extreme fatigue. These are nervous system related things. So fat is an excellent regulator for all of these mechanisms in our body. And it is not to be taken lightly as just something that is a very dense caloric macronutrient, because that's often the first thought that we think of when we think of fat. We think of a dense, calorically dense macronutrient to be consumed in small quantities, and to have the right sources. So it is a slow burning energy source, perfect for supporting low intensity activity. Okay. Just a little bit of stats. Carbs and protein each contain 4 calories and fat contains 9. So that's why we consider fat to be a dense caloric source of macronutrient. Okay. Reiterating what she's talking about, the foods that you eat exert a powerful psychological influence, stronger than any act of willpower. Unbelievable, but absolutely real. The psychological influence is so ingrained, it is so subtle that you may think, oh, I can diet through anything. If I set my mind to something, that's it. Nobody can come in my way. This is all willpower talking. The psychological effect of eating the foods that we choose to normally, that don't have a good influence on us, that effect is much, much stronger than any act of willpower. They influence our hormones, silently directing your metabolism. Metabolism is how you burn energy. Hormones are the regulators, the messengers to kind of keep the metabolism going. So when your metabolism is struggling, it's because the hormones are out of whack. Okay. They affect your digestive tract, which is your body's first line of defense. So easy to forget this fact about our gut. Where does the food that we eat hit us the most? First, in our stomachs, in our gut, in our digestive tract. And the body is set up to have certain different lines of defense so that it can protect ourselves. And the digestive tract is the body's first line of defense. And lastly, they impact your immune system and your risk for any number of diseases and conditions. Now, the sneak peek on the chapters. So, those are the few things that we will go through. Now, listen to this bit. How do things generally start going wrong? So let's say you've been diagnosed with a condition, whatever it may be. It may be a joint problem to high sugar, high cholesterol. I'm quoting some of the common ones that I hear at the gym. It could be high BP. It could be arthritis or osteoporosis, which has become now very common when people go for checkups, etc. Okay. So now, how does something start going wrong? First, you overconsume nutrient-poor foods because their psychological effect on you is very strong. Okay. The overconsumption and the types of the food that you tend to overconsume then leads to a hormonal, a gut, and an immune system disruption. And then all the systems and the conditions and diseases follow. So whether it is something extreme like diabetes, you reverse it back. What has happened is immune system has gone for a toss, leading to the disease. Before the immune system, the gut was struggling for a long time. Before that, the metabolism had gone down, which is a hormonal imbalance. Before that, you were getting food cravings, binging on food, created habits about eating certain types of food, which is a psychological impact, and thereby coming back to the first step of the foods that we are eating. Okay. We're almost at I'm just going to take a few minutes and then I'll just quickly check if anybody has any questions and we'll stop for the day over there. We think that the foods that are good for your body should also not mess with your mind. So I'm just sneaking into this chapter on the psychological influence, which is the first good food standard, which is the one that it should have a positive psychological influence, okay, on you. The psychological effects of the food choices that you're making are perhaps the most important factors to consider during your healthy eating transformation. So, guys, dieting doesn't work, but you knew that already, didn't you? Yes, calorie restrictive plans can help you lose weight, but only in the short term. And when you bounce back, you normally, how many people have you heard of, okay, who lost like tremendous amount of weight in a year? 2 years later, they're back to much more than what they had started with when they were trying to lose weight. How many times have you yo-yoed between a diet, lost weight, give up on the diet because A, B, C, D, whatever the reasons that we give ourselves to justify why the diet was no good for you, and then you've gone back to a weight. So we struggle with food cravings, bad habits, compulsions, and addictions. We know we shouldn't, but we feel compelled to eat these foods. All of this makes us feel guilty, makes us feel stressed because, you know, we are rational. We think we're very intellectual, very rational human beings. We always want to reason as to why am I feeling like this? Why did I make this choice? So we beat ourselves up about it. Please understand, it is not your fault that you can't stop eating these foods. Why? Because these unhealthy foods have an unfair advantage. And I can tell you, looking at the food stores that I see in Bombay, you know, you'll see just in our area, the number of food shops that have come up, which are completely full of packaged vegetarian foods, which are called healthy snacks. And there are so many brands. And these are the places that we go shopping. Why? Oh, we're having a big dinner party, so we need starters, or we need, you know, something as tasters, something with drinks, etc. And these unhealthy foods have an unfair advantage because they are designed in a lab, in the industry, to mess with your brain. They are built to make you crave them, and they make it hard for you to give them up. Even because we're talking in India related to our Indian cultural foods, don't kid yourself by thinking that, oh, all this applies to American fast foods. It applies to large supermarkets filled with lots of packaged foods. Actually, it applies as much to our processed samosas and dhoklas, which are supposedly fresh, made every day, sold easily, our bhel puris, our chaats, etc. Okay, they may not always come in a packet. They may not always have a very long shelf life. You may say that, okay, I can't, but they have the same psychological effect on your brains that these American books are talking about when they're talking about their supermarket foods. So if there is any place where I see as we go through this that it doesn't apply to our Indian scenario, etc., I will make it a point to you know, bring that up. Or if you feel free to interrupt me. Okay. Food cravings can be defined as an intense desire to consume a particular food or a type of food that is difficult to resist. Try and eat your local bhel wala's bhel, okay, 3 days in a row. Fourth day, tell me at that same evening time that you're not kind of getting this craving. I want to go and eat that bhel because I've eaten it every day. Okay, it's exactly the same response that it's generating. Cravings aren't merely about your behavior related to the food in question. They're about your emotional motivation and the conditioning, the habit that is created with repeated satisfaction. You don't even have to be hungry to experience a craving. In fact, they're more closely related to moods like anger, sadness, frustration than it actually is to hunger. We know this. If you intuitively ask yourself, you know this to be true. You have the capacity to visualize that food, to imagine its taste, and then that correlates to the strong craving that you get, you know, where you are fantasizing about it. You are creating a situation where, okay, yeah, that save has, or that bhel is actually rice puffs, right? Rice is good for me. What can be so bad about rice puffs? It doesn't have oil. It's very light. It's I can digest it easily. So yeah, that's a good reason. And it's light. It's low in calories, etc. So now I've come up with 7 different reasons as to why that bhel puri is not too bad for me. So specific food cravings can turn into poor eating habits in just a few days. Okay. I think I'll stop here in terms of going through, because the next bit, which is about the ancient signals, meaning the signals that our bodies know about food, the messages that the body gives us about food are ingrained in our DNA. They go back a long way. And we want to try, in the next section, we want to understand what are those ancient signals, which actually make perfect sense as to why we like sweet foods, why we like salty foods, why we like foods that are fatty. But in today's scenario, because of the options that have changed in the sweet foods, in the salty foods, in the fatty foods, we have completely now lost touch with those ancient signals. So I'm going to stop there. We'll continue next week on this. Anybody who's listening can turn on your mics. If you have any questions so far, let me know. I'm just going to pause the recording right here.